Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. The creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great. And they'll distribute your podcast for you so that it can be heard everywhere on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Google Podcasts, and many more. And you can easily make money from your podcast with no minimal listenership. Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Welcome back to another episode of Teachable Life Moments with Keeler Bryson. I am so happy that you are here tuning in and supporting the podcast. I thank you for listening to our weekly podcast sessions. I hope that is benefiting you. I hope that you had a wonderful Easter weekend. The city here is starting to open again, and so a lot of people were moving around this past weekend, and especially on Easter Day when we were riding through our neighborhood, we noticed a lot of cars were parked outside of a number of homes in our neighborhood. And so it's obvious that people are starting to move around and people are starting to feel a little bit more comfortable with socializing. But I just want to admonish you to still use some wisdom and to keep safe out there, okay? All right, so let's get to it. Today, I want to talk to you about, from the topic of don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. And if I had to give this another title, it would be Growth Mindset Me. Growth Mindset Me. We are living in an era where, you've got to be a person that is of a growth mindset. The way that the world is changing and that the way that the world is moving toward advancement, if you do not know how to have a growth mindset, you're going to be left behind. And so that is why we want to talk to you today about don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. We've all come across know-it-alls in our lives, right? And just to be honest, these type of people kind of get on our nerves. At some point, they just kind of irk you. They just know it all. I don't know. It could be a coworker. It could be, maybe a buddy. It could be, a child. It could be someone at your church or someone in your neighborhood. They just know it all, and it could be you. Are you a know-it-all? Do you consider yourself a know-it-all, or do you consider yourself a learn-it-all? I feel like we have plenty of know-it-alls, but we don't have enough learn-it-alls. And if you are a know-it-all, one of the reasons why people are irritated with know-it-alls is because they are basically closed-minded. They're closed to other perspectives. They're closed to other folks' opinions. They're closed to listening to people, and mainly because they feel like they know it all. They feel like they, have been around, a while, and they feel like they've lived a couple of moons, and they just feel like, at this point in my life, I do know it all. Typically, we see this among, older people. Especially if they're trying to hear an opinion or perspective from someone who's younger than them. Usually, that older person is not as open-minded to receive information from a younger person. And it's because they feel like maybe that person don't know what they're talking about. They haven't lived long enough. But, we all could use room for growth. And to be honest, no matter how much we think we know it all, we really and truly do not know it all. This concept, I was doing some research on the internet and um, came across this movement of moving away from being a know-it-all to a learn-it-all. And this concept came from the Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. He became the CEO at Microsoft, and he was looking for ways to make impact at the organization. And he was feeling like coming to this CEO position, was feeling like he had to fill some pretty big shoes. And so, one of the things that he came up with was this concept from reading a book that his wife had told him about. And he has been able to transform the organization to the next level by introducing this concept. And it was intriguing to me to see him promote this concept within the organization, because he realized that if we are not learn-it-alls, then we will not be growth minded. We won't have a growth mindset, and there's a danger in not being growth minded. Do you consider yourself to be growth minded? Or do you consider yourself to be a know-it-all, or are you just indifferent? It doesn't really matter to you whether you're a know-it-all or a learn-it-all. If you are not a learn-it-all or don't really enjoy learning, I want to challenge you to become more interested in learning things, because there's a danger when we're not learning. If we're not learning, basically we're not growing. And if you want to transform your life, become focused on being a learn-it-all, because it will change. You will not be in the same place if you endeavor and be intentional about becoming more knowledgeable and becoming a life learner. They did a study and they found out learn-it-alls, they always did much better than the know-it-alls. Even though the know-it-alls had all the starts, they had a better head start. They may have started out with better capabilities, but in the end, the learn-it-alls surpassed them. And case in point, a lot of times when you look at like an older generation, and at first they appear to be better capable when compared to a younger generation, but eventually the younger generation will surpass the older generation. Is because the younger generation has a new set of knowledge that the older generation it hasn't probably strongly participated in. And one example that I can give you to kind of drive that point home is that a lot of times older individuals tend to struggle with technology. They struggle with their phone. I remember working with an organization, and it was a big operation, a big project, and there was a struggle with getting the older employees through training. There was struggle. A lot of them did not know how to operate a phone. They did not know how to put the phone on mute. Some didn't know how to text, and so it was a struggle. And now, although an older person like that probably was ahead as far as capability to some extent, but the younger generation has surpassed them in just that growth and that knowledge mindset. And why did that happen? Maybe perhaps the older generation felt like they knew it all. Maybe they felt like they really didn't need the knowledge, didn't feel it was important to be knowledgeable about technology and how to use a phone and how to do apps and, how to refresh your phone and all of that, how to put it on speaker, how to mute it, and maybe they just didn't feel that that was important until it came time to work a job. And then it was just obvious who had been left behind in this world, in this state. And so we don't want to be left behind. We want to always be people who are on the move. We want to be people who are growing. We want to be people who are developing our skills and talents. When I worked at this other organization, one of my managers had given me this book. He would always go to these leadership retreats, and they would always give the managers books. And when he would come back, he would give me the books. And so one of the books that he had given me was called Strength-Based Leadership, and it's for people that are leaders, or if you're on teams. And it talks about why people follow you. And the whole premise of the book is to help leaders understand their team members' skill sets and their strengths, so that you could look at your strength and figure out how to best, assign work projects to certain team members on your team if they had a certain strength that was in alignment with the task at hand. So if you are interested in finding out what are your top 5, strengths, then I recommend that you go and purchase that book. It's called Strength-Based Leadership. And in the back of the book, there's a little assessment that you can take online, and you answer all these questions, and it'll tell you what are your strengths. My top 5 strengths are strategic, empathy, I'm a relator, I'm futuristic, and I have discipline. And one of the top 5 strengths that are really rare among the group of people that I was working with at the time was futuristic. Very few, I think there were only 2 of us in the whole organization that had futuristic. And futuristic is basically, to me, is indicative of the fact that growth mindset, always thinking about how to be ready for the future. And basically being a learn-it-all is how you are preparing yourself for the future. So if you want to do well in life, if you want to not be left behind, then be a learn-it-all, because we're fed up with these know-it-alls. I know I'm not by myself. Do you agree? Do you feel the same way? So how is it that the know-it-alls surpassed how is it that the learn-it-alls surpassed the know-it-alls, even though the know-it-alls started out with better capabilities? It was because of a growth mindset. And if you have a growth mindset, you're going to always succeed, because you're always advancing, thinking about the next move, thinking about the next opportunity, thinking about how you can better position yourself in the future. But here are the 5 differences between know-it-alls and learn-it-alls. The first difference, as I've been saying over and over, is the growth mindset. Know-it-alls, they already have certain capabilities, and they basically will just remain the same person because they believe that there's nothing left to know. Meanwhile, a learn-it-all aims to learn anything and everything, constantly developing and growing for the better. Let me ask you a question. Are you always doing something, or you frequently find yourself doing something to better yourself for the future, or to develop yourself? And are you reading books? Or are you interested in courses? Are you making investments in yourself to help develop your skill set, or to help you to grow in a particular area? Think about that. If you're not doing any of those things, you could potentially be a know-it-all, because it's a sign that you're not trying to develop, and you're not trying to grow or plant those seeds in yourself to become even stronger in an area. The second difference between the 2 types of folks is focus. Know-it-alls, they always believe that they have reached their potential knowledge, and that they understand a topic. And so their whole focus is on being an expert that they believe themselves to be. And then, which is kind of arrogant at times. You think you're the expert based upon old knowledge. And then here comes the learn-it-all. They show up on the scene, and they come rolling out this fresh knowledge. And sometimes it can be intimidating to a person that's a know-it-all, because they don't realize that their information has become outdated. A learn-it-all, on the other hand, they focus on always being a beginner, and that there's always something new to learn, no matter how accomplished they feel that they already are in a topic or skill. And that is some of the reason why Satya Nadella, the CEO at Microsoft, wanted to introduce this culture, because Microsoft is like a technology type of organization that's always, trying to move the company and society into the future. How are you going to be ready for the future and move your organization and society into the future if you're not trying to develop a skill and you're not constantly trying to grow and improve and become better and push out better products? And so this is some of the reason why he wanted to introduce this new cultural mindset. So what is the third difference between know-it-alls and learn-it-alls? The third difference is mindset. A know-it-all, they may not be open to new things because their belief is that they already know everything that they need to know. And then a lot of times this becomes a source of conflict because they think that their view is always right. Can you relate to that? Do you work with people like that? Do you work with folks who are just set in their ways and they think they know everything and they think they're always right? They don't want to, step back and consider the possibility that they may not be right. And as a result, it creates conflict, especially if you are a younger person that's supervising an older person with that mindset. It could be a challenge. And so if we have folks like this in our organizations or in our families, or if you're that person, you want to, step back and say, do I do that? Am I demonstrating the behavior of a know-it-all? And if so, then you've got to transform yourself and switch over and make some adjustments so that you can become a learn-it-all. Now, a learn-it-all has a mindset, they believe that if you don't unlearn what is now irrelevant and make room for new knowledge, you're going to get left behind. And that is why I'm so strong about moving forward and always thinking of ways of how to better position myself or from a part of an organization. I'm always looking for ways of how to make sure that organization is positioned to be prepared and ready for the future, to be fit for the future. And it is so important to me to the point where if I see that place is not thinking about the future, I'm ready to go, because I'm like, I cannot be left behind. I cannot be a part of something that's not trying to move forward. And this pandemic is a prime example of how so many organizations were not prepared for online customer service to their customers or to their parishioners, because they never thought that something like this could happen. They never considered the possibility. But I guarantee you that after this, a lot of folks that were in that know-it-all mindset or had a know-it-all spirit on them, they're going to make some adjustments, and they're going to begin to welcome the futuristic people, or the prophets, if you want to call them, that have seen a glimpse of what's to come and how to be ready, so that they never are caught with their pants down, so to speak. And so, learn-it-alls, they don't want to be left behind. And if they are connected with you as a friend, or connected with you as a spouse, or connected with you as a leader or an employee, you are blessed, because they're going to definitely make sure that you are not left behind as well. So embrace the learn-it-alls. Embrace those who have a futuristic or prophetic anointing on their life. The fourth difference between a know-it-all and a learn-it-all is that a know-it-all may know all the facts and the theories, but sometimes they don't even test the truth behind them or even try to put them into practice. And, this is what is causing a lot of conflict in a lot of organizations with the different generations. You got one generation that, tends to know it all. They know they got the facts and the figures, but they don't even put them into practice. And as a result, the learn-it-all gets frustrated because they trying and they testing stuff. They know and they put into practice to see if it's right. Almost like a scientist testing a hypothesis. Think about the Subway situation where someone went in there and actually measured the length of the Subway sandwiches and found out that they were not the length that Subway was declaring. Now, that had to be a learn-it-all that went out there and tested it. Who, in all of my years, no one, at that point had went out and measured a Subway sandwich to see was it what they said it was. No one went out there to find out and assess whether or not the tuna was actually tuna. But this is what happens when you are dealing with a learn-it-all. They're out there testing it, challenging it, helping the system to be better. The fifth difference between a know-it-all and a learn-it-all is definitely and obviously the learning appetite. A know-it-all, they assume that they already know enough, so their learning appetite is limited. And I'm the type of person, because I'm futuristic and because I love learning, if I don't ever see you pick up a book, I'm going to suggest a book to you. Or I want to know, what are you reading? I want to know, what is the latest course or investment you've made in yourself? Because I have that appetite for learning, because I know if you're not learning, you're not growing. You're standing still and you're setting yourself up to be stuck. But a learn-it-all, this type of person, they're curious. They're constantly asking questions because they truly want to understand, the deeper level of things. And so, if you are that know-it-all, this is a challenge for you to become a learn-it-all. The differences are clear and it's obvious, which type of person is preferred in this day and age. And the people that are learn-it-alls, those are the people that are getting the jobs, the good jobs, the high-paying jobs, the jobs that have opportunities for growth and advancement. Being a learn-it-all means understanding that there is always something new to learn. Never, never, never let yourself get stuck in believing that there's nothing else new to learn, because there's always something new to learn. Even though we know something really well, we can still learn more. We think when we graduate high school, get our college degrees, that's it. No, we have got to commit ourselves to be life learners. I don't care how old we get. I love seeing old people still trying to, learn something, and in the college classrooms with the younger folks, and they know how to go and do things that you would assume they don't know how to do. That really, really gets my motor running and my juices flowing to see an older person just still interested in learning and knowing. We've got to be committed to being a lifelong learner and having a lifelong learner mindset and surrounding ourselves with people like that. If you're an older person, even with your grandkids, get with them, let them show you some things about this technology, because technology is a beautiful thing at times. Another example that I can think of is, of the danger of things that can happen when we're not trying to better improve ourselves. Think about all these computers out here that have been programmed. That a lot of times they program them to do a whole lot of things to make life more efficient and more convenient. But even in those machines, they become limited at some point, because they still have to be programmed to keep up with the new advances, the new technology. And otherwise you'll have an outdated PC, an outdated phone. That's some of the reason why these service providers on technology, they're constantly updating, constantly coming out with a new product, a new iPhone, a new iPad, a new TV or something, because they're trying to keep us ahead so that we don't fall behind. I mean, America is competing with all these other countries in technology and learning and knowing information and skills and stuff. And so we've got to keep ourselves ready and prepared. Even as humans, our mind is a complex network, and we cannot possibly know everything, even as a human, because our memories and our capabilities are limited, right? And so as our world changes, some of our knowledge that we've acquired may no longer be useful. Just like all the ways that they taught us how to do math when I was in school. Do you know they have changed that up? And the way that they're showing these kids how to do math now is kind of ridiculous to me. It seems like it's the longer way of teaching them how to do math. And I really don't understand the theory behind retraining them of how to do math. But I'm sure they have a method behind their madness. But they're doing it to try to keep up with other countries and thinking it's going to help, our students to be able to calculate things fast and have an understanding of why math problems exist to begin with. What is the purpose? What is the theory behind solving the answer? Because a lot of times we solve problems and have no clue of what that math problem is trying to tell us, or what was the purpose in trying to figure that out. We were just taught, figure it out. But this generation, they trying to teach them why they need to know the answer. Why is that the answer? Eric Hoffer, the American moral and social philosopher, once said, "In times of change, learners inherit the earth, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists." And this is so true. The learners inherit the earth. And we see the learners, those that are smart and got the knowledge, the scientists, and they inherit the earth, and then find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. And we saw that with this pandemic, when how a lot of organizations wasn't even ready and prepared, to deal with the shift that needed to take place, especially if they wanted to stay in connection and in contact and in communication with their customers or with their parishioners or what have you. Those who are ready, prepared, and learned are the ones that are going to be beautifully equipped. And that is the whole point of me going through today's podcast. I want to just challenge us, if we're not being a learn-it-all person, to really begin to seek it and assess it so that we're not left behind, because the pandemic has changed some things, and a lot of things that once was is not going to be exactly the way that it was. Some jobs are not going to come back in the way that they existed. And so we've got to, have ourselves prepared for the future, constantly learning. As long as change is constant, learning must also be constant. And that's if you want to get better and keep up with the change. Now, I know there's some people out here, they don't want to keep up with the change and they don't want to be better, and that's okay. But I know none of my listeners are that type of person. I believe those that listen to the podcast here are always looking for ways to better their life, better the life for the generation that's to come after them. And one of the ways to do that is always be learning, reading a book, listening to an educational, informational podcast, hanging out with people that are smarter than you, that cause you to have to go and, look up words in the definitions out of the dictionary, or, they cause you to want to take a class so you can learn more. Those are the people you want to hang around. You want to hang around the eagles. You want to get around some mastermind groups, join some conference call. I was on a conference call the other day with a group of people from all over the country, and we all sitting there listening to the speaker, because we are trying to make sure we keep ourselves ready for the future and keep ourselves prepared in our skills, and know what the trends are in the marketplace and know what's coming. Because if you don't know what the trends are, it could impact your business. I mean, it's just good to know and to learn some things and never get stuck in limiting our knowledge base. So that is my time. I hope what I said today is beneficial to you. Please like, share, comment, tell others about the podcast. And until the next episode, have a wonderful, wonderful week.